Picture this. Grainy black and white footage flickers onto the screen, and there she is. Tiny tap shoes clacking against the stage floor, curls bouncing, that signature smile lighting up the frame. Shirley Temple, arguably the biggest star in America, before she even reached double digits. Everyone adored her, from Depression-era families huddling around their radios to glamorous Hollywood icons seeking a spark of innocence in a world that often felt far too grown up. But what happens when the lights fade and the final credits roll? Where did Shirley Temple go after her cinematic heyday? And more intriguingly, where did she call home when she wasn't melting hearts on the silver screen? This story unfolds in the sun-kissed enclaves of Los Angeles, specifically in a house nestled in the upscale neighborhoods of Brentwood or Beverly Hills. When you think Shirley Temple, you might picture candy-colored sets and impossibly cheerful musicals, but her real-life surroundings were more substantial than the ephemeral world of show business. Let's take a rare peek inside the so-called Shirley Temple House, an estate rumored to have been her family's choice retreat during the apex of her career. The structure itself might initially strike you as just another lavish piece of West Side real estate, but behind those doors lies a piece of America's collective childhood. Built in the 1930s when Hollywood's golden age was in full swing, this home exudes an architectural style that draws the eye. Some accounts describe it as a Tudor Revival, complete with timbered gables and quaint leaded glass windows. Others insist it's a Spanish Colonial with red-tiled roofs and stucco walls, reminiscent of old California missions. Either way, the storyline is that when Shirley Temple's star began to soar, her parents recognized they needed a place reflecting both the prestige of their daughter's sudden fame and the cozy warmth of a real family home. So they invested in this property, allegedly customizing certain features to create a place where childhood innocence could flourish, despite the swirl of studio politics and paparazzi flashbulbs. Imagine the times, the 1930s, post-Depression. People wanted optimism, and Shirley Temple was the perfect embodiment of that. She sang and danced on film screens across the country, bringing hope to audiences who needed it most. Meanwhile, in the real world, her mother Gertrude Temple and father George Temple carefully crafted an environment they felt was worthy of their little superstar, something that offered normality amidst the chaos. Legend has it that discussions about the property's layout were peppered with considerations of where Shirley would practice her dance routines and how they might entertain visiting studio heads without overshadowing their child's need for quiet afternoons and bedtime stories. Step through the front entrance, and you're greeted by a foyer that immediately announces old Hollywood charm. Warm wooden floors, possibly original to the home, squeak ever so slightly beneath your feet, a reminder that this place has stood witness to nearly a century of changing fortunes. If you glance to the side, you might catch sight of an antique mirror that could have belonged to the Temples, reflecting the passing silhouettes of people who've strolled these halls over the decades. Venture further, and the living room comes into view, anchored by a grand fireplace, rumored to date back to the house's initial construction. The mantel, carved with delicate flourishes, gives off an almost storybook aura, as though it could be the setting of a Christmas special featuring Shirley singing carols to an adoring audience. One can imagine her practicing lines here, perhaps with a new script in hand, while her mom fussed over her next costume. In some stories, there's a wooden staircase off to the right, wide enough to glide down in a swirl of stage outfits. If the rumors hold true, Shirley might have used those steps like a miniature performance space, entertaining guests with a tap routine After all, why wait for a film set when you've got an audience right at home? And then there's the study, a room that, if local lore is to be believed, once doubled as Shirley's early dance studio. It's said that her parents installed a specially fitted bar along one wall, encouraging her to practice for hours, perfecting every shuffle, step, and ball change. A tall window in the room overlooks a garden outside, and it's easy to imagine young Shirley taking a break from her drills, gazing out at the flowers and dreaming of her next big role. Nowadays, whoever owns the house might use it as a reading nook or a home office. But if you close your eyes, you can almost hear the tap shoes echoing against the polished floor. No child star's domain is complete without a bedroom that's equal parts whimsical and functional. Shirley Temple's room, as the stories go, was a wonderland of plush rugs, soft pastel curtains, and shelves teeming with dolls and teddy bears. After all, she was still a child, despite the adult responsibilities of contracts and rehearsals. At some point, you might spot a faded photograph in an old newspaper archive. Shirley sitting on a child-sized armchair, hair in perfect ringlets, reading a book beneath the softly glowing light of a bedside lamp. Her parents, known for managing her career meticulously, were equally diligent about creating a space that let her be a little girl when the cameras weren't rolling. If that doesn't paint enough of a picture, consider the home's outdoor features. Many of these grand Beverly Hills or Brentwood estates boast expansive gardens, trimmed hedges, and maybe even a fountain or two. The Shirley Temple House is said to have had a swimming pool, possibly added sometime in the early 1940s, where Shirley might have splashed around with her pet dogs or posed for pictures that ended up in fan magazines. Imagine those vintage photo spreads, a giggling Shirley in a polka dot swimsuit, water droplets glistening in the Californian sun, while the family's cocker spaniel bounces around excitedly. Over by the garden, a neat row of rose bushes might have been planted at her mother's insistence, offering a fragrant spot for reading scripts in the shade. You can almost feel the film reels splicing together in your mind, occasional cuts to Shirley's most famous movie roles, where she's dancing in a frilly dress, singing about lollipops or good ships, and then seamlessly transitioning to glimpses of her real-life sanctuary in this house, a realm that felt like the only stable backdrop in an otherwise high-octane, studio-driven life. The contrast between her public persona and private downtime is the stuff that fuels the imagination. Did she ever skip across the garden humming On the Good Ship Lollipop? Did she run up to that dogwood tree to confide her childhood hopes and dreams? As Shirley Temple grew older, the house witnessed a pivotal shift. Once the unstoppable child star, she moved into her teenage years, and the phone calls from studios began to slow, or at least morph. Interviewers clamored for a more grown-up Shirley. What did she think of the war effort, or the state of the film industry, or even the complexities of teenage love? Rumors swirl that some of these interviews happened right here in the living room, with Shirley perched on a couch while a journalist sat on a vintage armchair, scribbling notes about how the little princess was becoming a young lady. Gossip columns also hinted that Walt Disney himself might have visited once or twice, perhaps for conversations about a potential animated cameo or a cameo in some future live-action film. The house thus became a casual extension of Hollywood's networking scene, albeit in a more intimate, family-oriented setting. In the background, time didn't stand still. Shirley's transition from iconic child actor to fledgling teen star wasn't seamless, and soon her life trajectory took an entirely different path. She married, found new opportunities, and eventually pivoted to diplomacy, one of the most unexpected second acts in Hollywood history. She became Shirley Temple Black, a formidable United States ambassador, far removed from the child stardom that once defined her. But even as she traveled the globe, representing her country in places like Ghana and Czechoslovakia, did she occasionally think back to that quiet bedroom in the Brentwood home where she'd once lain awake, dreaming of tap shoes and movie sets? So what happened to the house itself after the star turned her gaze to international affairs? According to scattered records and local legends, Shirley's parents eventually sold the place when it no longer served as the family's primary hub. Over the ensuing decades, ownership bounced around. Some say a well-known musician picked it up in the 1960s, enthralled by its old Hollywood mystique. Others claim it was purchased by a tech mogul who appreciated the historical value but didn't shy away from modernizing the property with the latest gadgets. The question remains, does any trace of Shirley Temple's childhood linger within those walls? Perhaps one of the subsequent owners fell in love with the story of the little girl who once called those floors a dance studio and decided to preserve that part of the house, leaving the bar in place as a conversation piece. Or maybe they kept Shirley's old bedroom largely intact, or at least tried to replicate its pastel vibe in homage to Hollywood nostalgia. Certain Beverly Hills realtors whisper that the property still has a Shirley Temple room, or at least a corner dedicated to memorabilia, a few framed movie posters, an original Shirley Temple doll, and a black and white photograph or two. While none of this is officially confirmed, the legend carries on among the local community. These days, real estate in Brentwood or Beverly Hills is no small matter. Properties that brush shoulders with Hollywood lore can fetch astronomical sums, and the so-called Shirley Temple House is no exception. Some have quoted figures soaring well above the seven-figure range, with real estate brokers vying for the chance to handle a listing so loaded with star power. If the current owners ever decided to put the house on the market, you can bet entire marketing campaigns would revolve around its cinematic heritage. From plush open house parties with 1930s themed cocktails to curated tours featuring interactive dance lesson stations, it would be a spectacle, one that might make Shirley herself giggle with amusement at how times have changed. But the question remains, should this historic gem be treated as an investment piece, or should it be cherished as a piece of living history? Are we talking about just another home flipping opportunity? Or is there something more profound about preserving the environment where America's favorite child star learned her lines, practiced her tap steps, and navigated the complexities of fame before she could even vote? For some buyers, it's strictly about the bottom line. A prime location, a storied neighborhood, and square footage that ticks all the boxes. For others, it's the allure of stepping into a storybook. It's the chance to wake up and walk across the same floors once graced by those iconic dancing feet, to look out the same windows that might have framed Shirley's wide-eyed wonder at the world. And so the house endures, quietly keeping watch as decades melt into modernity. Walls like these, once alive with so many pivotal moments, don't just fade into the background. They become a repository of secrets and dreams, holding on to the intangible spirit of the people who called them home. In the case of Shirley Temple, that spirit is one of boundless optimism, a reminder of a time when a single dimpled smile could brighten the darkest days of a nation struggling to find its footing. Of course, we can't overlook the broader cultural significance. Shirley Temple wasn't just a box office champion, she was a cultural phenomenon. As she grew into Shirley Temple Black and took on diplomatic roles, she frequently impressed upon the world the notion that childhood stardom didn't have to be a tragic story. Could that resilience and adaptability have been nurtured in a safe, family-centered home where she was allowed to be a child first and a movie star second? Perhaps. It stands to reason that living in a place that felt genuinely supportive and comforting might have contributed to her later successes beyond the silver screen. So here's a question for you. If you had the chance to own the Shirley Temple House, what would you do with it? Would you renovate it from top to bottom, installing state-of-the-art home theaters, climate-controlled wine cellars, and infinity pools, effectively erasing its 1930s character? Or would you celebrate its legacy, showcasing original fixtures and dedicating a corner to the storied past that brought it to life? Maybe you'd open it up occasionally for small tours, letting film buffs and historians soak in a piece of Hollywood history that usually remains out of reach. In a city as fast-paced and forward-looking as Los Angeles, it's a rare gift to preserve tangible vestiges of an era that shaped modern entertainment. And ultimately, this home isn't just about bricks, mortar, and hammered nails. It's about the million little memories stitched into its framework, a bedtime lullaby sung by an overworked but tender mother, the echo of tap shoes on hardwood floors, the swirl of a short dress as a child's star twirled in front of a living room mirror. In a sense, it's an invitation to step back in time and feel that spark of wonder that Shirley Temple brought to every movie scene she inhabited. So as our camera lingers on those well-worn steps and the sun-bathed garden where the wind rustles softly through the hedges, we realize we're not just seeing another Hollywood property. We're witnessing a chapter in America's cultural narrative, a place that nurtured one of the brightest lights of the 1930s. Even if you never set foot in this storied haven, the fact that it exists, that it's out there tucked away in some leafy Los Angeles neighborhood, can be oddly comforting. It stands as proof that behind every dazzling Hollywood production number, there's a quiet retreat where stars rest their heads and dream new dreams, where they can truly just be themselves. And in Shirley Temple's case, that meant being a radiant little girl who brought hope to millions, then went on to serve her country in the most unexpected ways. If walls could talk, these would sing a sweet, simple tune echoing the innocence of childhood and the promise of a future shaped by optimism. In the end, maybe that's what makes this house more than just a luxury listing. It's the embodiment of American nostalgia, a testament to how one curly-haired child turned struggle into sunshine and never stopped sharing that sunshine with the world.